Good morning, Cosmonarchy! I'm Krankendau, and today we're going to be casting a ZvZ. Unlike in Starcraft 1, and maybe also in Starcraft 2, ZvZ is not a meme. It's actually pretty cool. Let's see if this match between Neblime and Krankendau is a good enough demonstration of that, or if I'm going to be eating my words. We're going to Impetus for this particular match. We have Neblime in the bottom left, and we have Krankendau in the top right. Krankendau, a new player who has joined us only very recently. We did cast a 4-game set of his debut versus Eclipso, but this is a very different matchup. It's going to be a 7-pool coming out of Neblime to really put him through the ringer nice and early today. And speaking of early today, this cast was casted the same day as it was released. It was an early day for me to get up, so thank you for bearing with me as a result. Where's that pool going? Okay, he scouts with a different worker. I thought he was going to build the pool with that one, but that's okay. No big deal. We also have a couple of interesting elements here because this is on the latest patch. So as it will indeed be a 9-pool for Krankendau, we are expecting him to have a little bit of a safer build versus this. So there's an element, right, within Cosmonarchy that is very similar to ZvZ in basic StarCraft 1, where if you're thinking about it, like, there's certain build orders that are like coin flippy in some ways. The 7-pool is timed out to defeat a 9 hatch at the ramp, but by defeat, I mostly mean just put pressure on. You can still survive. It's just, you know, you might have to pull the workers a little bit, and you might have to fight them up a little bit. You can actually see, you'll notice here that the one of the things that is really cool is that there's just generally... Oh, he's telling him what he's making. They've been playing so many games. I guess they played like 17 matches. So this is one that was submitted for me to cast. We'll see about that one. But we are going to see a bunch of ZvZs come out here for Krankendau as an attempt at defense. Although, you can tell... Okay, here's what happened here. Neblime scouted, there was no pool. Instead, he scouted there was no hatch at the ramp. And he's like, oh wait, there's a pool here. See, you built a later pool, so you're going to have a better eco than me. So instead of building defense units or attack units, I'm going to just draw up instead. I'm going to make workers. So there's this really cool push and pull where you can scout this as Neblime, and even though you lose your scouting worker for your efforts, you still don't have to commit to the attack, even though you 7-pooled. So in this case, Neblime taking the worker advantage, but he is going to have to hold off against a lot of ZvZs. It'll be really funny if the only replay that is salvaged from the 17 games that were played is like Krankendau just running him over with his, not really a cheese, but like an early attack or something. It's not going to happen though. Quasilisks move him back. Generally versus Zethicors, they are significantly favored. But hey, Neblime was not exactly paying attention to his attack force here for just a moment. He looked away for 1 second, and the burrow trap reigning supreme. He's only got 2 back here. Krankendau can put up the pressure. 7 ZvZs still here. We do have another hatch. Oh my god, the worker scout comes on down to put down a forward circuit. Putting up the pressure indeed, but I feel like his ZvZs are just about to pop. Like, they're so low. He's pulling the workers as well for good measure. This should be just fine for a Neblime hold. He does have to watch out for this turning into a circuit, but I think he can't anymore. And he recognizes that. He doesn't cancel it, but at the very least, he gets some nice pain going. Okay, there's a couple of things about this. Krankendau knows that, at least I think he knows, that this hatch is down. So his hatch in the high on the high ground in his main, great. He has a bit more production. But he does have to make a couple of pairs of Quasilisks just for safety. He is up in workers. He was able to... he wasn't able to kill any workers, but there's 1 less worker here because obviously Neblime made the hatch. Now we're going to start to see Neblime droll behind this, and that means that he's going to have the eco advantage pretty soon. Krankendau will, of course, go for an expansion, and he's getting a faster 3rd hatch, is basically what he's planning to do here right now. So that's good. That's significant as an improvement. Let's see what Neblime is thinking. Okay, he sees the hatch go down. He can't do anything with the Quasilisks. They don't do good damage versus armored. You gotta watch out. You can't be moving out here if you're in Krankendau's shoes, because you don't know how many other units are coming. But you know what? Great focus fire. And Neblime starting to look a little bit worse for wear as a result. But again, you really don't want to be this far out in Krankendau's shoes. Like, I think he's being a little bit too overly aggressive. But he is going to focus down a couple of the Quasi. So, you know what? It works out for him. just not exactly what you would expect. He's got 6 more quasis on here, and 4 more pairs are about to hatch. So that's actually a pretty big deal. He's queuing up a lot. So he's not making workers. He's forcing the issue. The Circuith with 2 armor on pre-release instead of 3 could actually be a pretty big deal for the Quasilisks to charge forward. We do get updates on pre-release outside of the release is just for the tournament right now that we're running. So a lot of changes have been made since but not really many that really affect Zerg too much right now. This is before the Vornath Pond changes, for example. Okay, starting to get his other base set up. He's going to go ahead and make a bunch of workers. He did make a lot of quasis, but he doesn't feel like he can move forward. I think he could actually bust this position, though. I feel like it's a possibility. Avaleth, hatch at the ramp. Yeah, Neblime is behind in terms of production, but only for now. He won't be behind. He won't be ahead in terms of workers for very long. We do have the Hydrith Den coming. Okay, I like this because when you're up against an enemy Zerg, I mean, honestly, this number of quasis feels a little scary to fight with anything, but I could see a world where where Krankendau is able to like overwhelm the position with the quasis. I really think that Neblime would be in a lot of trouble if if 18, 19 quasis went down there. He's just got 1 burrowed one here instead, so I guess it would have been 20. There is going to be a drop set up to park into the main, and it's something that Krankendau doesn't seem too wary of yet. I don't know how often they've played each other. The Larvosk is coming up at the natural, so that's a very vulnerable structure. That's a lot of Vespene investment, but it basically gives you the same production as a Hatcherosk. So this is how Krankendau is going to maintain that parity with the production side. And I say parity because we have a Larvosk here for Neblime. We're going to have another one. Here's the drop. It's going after the pool instead of the workers. I definitely don't think that was a good idea. But he does force all of the quasis out because that was a very, very heavy overreaction, I feel like, for Krankendau. He's going to start losing workers here in the natural where everybody's been evacuated to. So now it's Krankendau's turn to look worse for wear, and Neblime's turn to make his opponent look a little silly. Running him around. Gets another worker kill. Remember, Krankendau still has that worker advantage, albeit only momentarily. Yeah, that counterattack could have done more damage. But despite the fact that he was sort of pushing and pulling, the Avaleth made it out. He still has 1 quasi in it. The Hydra is starting to leave the building. I don't know. I'm not sure I like Neblime's position as much, but he does have another Larvosk coming, so he will have 5 hatch worth of production to only 4 hatch worth of production for Krankendau. So there is that. Not very much gas being banked up here. He's resaturated his gas, but not his ridge, right? Oh, and not his geyser out here either. Little rough so far for Krankendau. But I'm sure he can fight back. Stiff upper lip. The 1 quasi in the single Avaleth. No, don't respond with everything. Not again. Well, here we go. He realizes, wait a second, the bigger threat is definitely over here. And I don't really mind if my pool takes a little bit of tickling. I can send 1 quasi over there. And, okay, sniping the Kagrant in exchange for 3 Hydras. Maybe not the best of trades. We've got Krankendau's own Hydras, including one that's lost his mind and decided to charge forward. Neblime going to seize upon that. 1 quasi gets taken care of nice and easy. Nothing in that Avaleth yet. Maybe we'll scoop up some Hydras for a counterattack. We have another Kagrant that will undoubtedly turn into a Larvosk. Neblime's plans within plans. Oh, okay, we do have the Izira Core coming. So the Izira Core trains a lot faster, and I believe it has like 5 more HP or something. It's really not that significant. But, yeah, the Hydras have been starting to elevate her up here on the ramp. Oh, no, they get a move command because they were in the same control group. Oops. One thing Neblime might be familiar with is how when you load units into a transport, you give them a you enter them into a selection group, right? Like if you recall the selection, say a control 1, a bunch of Hydras, load a couple of them into an Avaleth, and then recall the selection. In Brood War, the units inside the transport are just removed from the selection. But DF has achieved a fix to that behavior so that when you unload them, they're still in your selection. However, if you don't know that, and you just think, oh, they're probably no longer in the selection, you will issue your freshly dropped units to move instead of attack, or whatever. You know, they'll do something silly. All right, so Krankendau has his forces kind of split apart here using multiple control groups. And Neblime is trying to do something similar to sort of set up a concave. He's got a lot of Zeths coming and a couple extra Hydras. But I feel like with the Azira cores here, there's going to be a reckoning. You're right. Surely the Zeths will not last that long. Third base now on the way for Neblime. An expository push out here, exploratory with the Quasis. Okay, setting up to break the contain. That seems to be what's on Krankendau's mind. He's got a lot of minerals in the bank, but not so many in terms of Vespene. Has he resaturated his gas? Still not resaturated his gas in the main. That's that early harassment with all the drops and stuff. You'll notice that the larvae are not moving anymore. That's something that we fixed later. All right, the Azira cores engaging onto the Zeths. You couldn't ask for much better. They are going to mop up all of these Zethra cores here, nice and easy. However, they are buying some time for Neblime's ranged units to get into position. His own Azira cores now also able to contribute a little bit. You can indeed evade the attack if you just kite backwards. A couple Hydras on this side, just going to eat up the Zerg that are coming towards him. Neblime going to lose that flank. No third base yet on the cards, but Krankendau will sort of take a breather and figure out what he wants to do next. Man, he really needs to saturate that gas. He hasn't realized it yet. No bueno. Charging forward with all of his units. He can force a bit of a reaction here from his opponent. He has the stronger unit count, despite having less income. But the Iral Iris just finished for Neblime, so he's at tier 2. He can start evolving his defenses more. He can start increasing his tech options. There's a lot of things that he is capable of doing at this point that you do have to watch out for. All right, well, there's a sortie over that Ovaleth, but I don't really think it's going to matter too much. Krankendau's still not interested in charging forward just yet. Still not saturated his gas, I can tell just by the minimap. Sending in another round of units. Pressuring on multiple sides. He sees that the Kagrins are coming up. This is a great opportunity for him to charge forward, try to pressure on multiple fronts, but as those upper tier defenses come online at the third, it's going to be a little bit harder. He is going to charge forward. He does bust the Circuit. The Scorcheth now online. This is going to deal some nice spray damage, but it still forces Neblime to split his army. And again, he has the weaker army, at least on paper, but now the Azira cores are gone, so there is no more spread damage to deal with the Zets, and that allows the Hydras to trade onto Krankendau's Hydras. So the right flank is busted, but the left flank is holding strong. Neblime, his defense is going to continue. There's an attempt to try to sync up the army here, but Neblime keeps pushing on forward with the Hydras, denying the surround and the flank from the reinforcements. Now he's going to come in and try to focus him down. Is this a mistake? I don't think so, because more units are streaming on in from Neblime's hatcheries. He's got 10 Hydras coming out here in just a moment. Make it 12, by the way. And so many of them are coming up. But Krankendau has been spending down to the last dollar, the last Vespene dollop, and he hasn't been able to bust the third. He's busted the defense, but not the actual workers, and certainly not the hatch, so he cannot reset his position, and he does not have a third base up himself. This is the point where the money will start to run wild for Neblime, and this is also the point where Krankendau should really saturate this gas. Poor guy. You know, it happens to the best of us, man. In the middle of a frenetic set of matches, and you drop, and you get dropped, rather. Oh, no. Oh, narrowly avoids losing the worker. Does he, though? Neblime on top of it. A couple of Izzies flying down here just to get bodied. Yeah, this is probably the push that that could end it. Well, I say that. The Azira cores are here. More of them coming as well. Neblime just going to try to one-shot them. A couple of Zets be received by the reinforcements popping up from Crank, who's switched into a lot of Azira cores because he doesn't have the gas to spend on Hydras because he doesn't saturate it. All right, I'll stop talking about it. I promise I'll only mention it 5 more times before the end of the cast. We have an opportunity here for Crank to go for a third base. Indeed, he really needs to think about that, and will do so now. I don't know. I feel like it's definitely Neblime favored. I mean, it is definitely Neblime favored. I feel like there's not much of a hope here for Krankendau because He doesn't have his third up, and it's going to be some time before he does. He's going to go ahead and set it up now. And even though he's got all these Izzies, he doesn't have any... Oh my god! Pog? But beyond that, he doesn't have his tier 2 in sight. That was probably like the biggest issue, is that his response to the drop and stuff was a little bit crazy. We reacted with every single unit to the 5 units that unloaded from the Avaloth. So that was not ideal, and that led to this move. And now that he's realized, oh my god, I haven't been hunting gas for this long, he's going to go for the ski back, so he can at least have some evolved unit comp. Maybe a lot of Bactyls? I don't know. Neblime is only going for the Matroleth and Vilgoricor push, so Hydra Backed could theoretically safeguard you from that, at least to try to buy time. But Neblime's had the third base up and running for a long time, so not only does he have tier 2 up, but he has more income by a significant margin, and he's starting to cap his geysers, which is like just going to run away with it at that point. Certainly Neblime's games to lose. We'll see how long that statement remains true. Or if he just wins it outright. But yes, this is ZvZ and Cosmonarchy, dude. It was very different. After all the games that were played, I think Krankendau had some mention of like, oh my god, dude, this is way better than Brood War ZvZ. And hey, we agree. But I'm sure that people will continue to find out stuff. The flexibility of the openers are definitely what makes it really interesting. Now, diving forward here with a couple of the units to the left of the Hatcherosk is one thing, but the Matroleth finding a lot of impact is another. The Vilgoricor charging forward, offering a lot of shields in initial with its Carapace Swarm. The Hydra's trying to focus down the front line just so that they can get in onto the back. And I don't think this is actually the push that Krankendau dies at. I feel like Krankendau holds this one okay. He has been able to poke down the Vilgoricors, but oh man, the tides are turning. And the tides are turning because of the Rocors, thanks to all of the spawns from these Vilgalets. Those were not focused down, and that actually is the push to end all pushes. Krankendau not getting, maybe being surprisingly destroyed by the Vilgalets, by those brood spawn. We love to see it. Neblime's favored strategy, and you can tell why. All right, Krankendau, you got a taste of Brood War ZvZ, and now you got a taste of Cosmonarchy ZvZ. We'll, of course, have more games to play and to cast between these two, I'm sure, because, like I said, there were 17 matches played between these guys. This was just the one that I could get working in short notice. But definitely stay tuned for more, and be prepared. Definitely be expecting some exciting results, I'm thinking, because Crank has been playing a lot. He's hungry to play a lot of Cosmo. So, listen, join the Discord and feed him. You know, make this guy happy by playing him. That's what I'm saying. All right, boys. GG's.